Hi guys, it's Jill, and this is the Equine in Theory podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. And today I want to talk about some of the misconceptions surrounding positive reinforcement training. There are a lot of them, but today I'm going to touch on a few and give you guys my thoughts and opinions on them. So let's jump in. Misconceptions. What a wonderful topic to discuss today. Misconceptions about positive reinforcement. Misconceptions are not a fun thing at all. They lead people to believe inaccurate information. And if you're not familiar with what a misconception is, it is akin to misunderstanding or falsehoods. If you are interested in a thesaurus, that's me. Anyway, so misconceptions around positive reinforcement. I could go on about this all day and will likely do another episode touching on some different topics in the future. But for now, I just want to talk about a few. I'm doing this project for the Restart program. They're filming a documentary to bring more awareness to positive reinforcement trainers because, you know, there's the Buck movie about Buck Brannaman. There are all sorts of documentaries about natural horsemanship with Clinton Anderson and Pat Pirelli and Monty Roberts and all of those guys. But there isn't one on positive reinforcement horse trainers. So the Restart program is really trying to bring that to light and change that. So they've reached out to a bunch of us, and you can check out their project on their website, and they have a whole cast of awesome, incredible trainers on there. And as I was filming my interview, it really got me thinking about some misconceptions, and I can't wait for that video to come out. I'm not sure when exactly the release date is, but I'll keep you guys posted on that. But it got me thinking about a lot of the misconceptions, and I really wanted to be able to elaborate on that a little bit. So bringing it to the podcast. So one of the first and biggest misconceptions is about the weight, horses gaining weight. And I don't know. Growing up, I always saw people that worked with treats with mega fat horses. And I was like, whoa, is this, I mean, like, you know, obviously you say food plus horse equals fat. Like, that was the simple equation. But I think that the issue lies in what type of training you're doing. A lot of the ones that I saw were just doing, like, you know, casual bowing and like rearing type tricks. Nothing that was really exercise based. And a lot of them weren't predominantly riders or really exercising their horses, and had some like more pony type breeds. And I'm sure they had them on their own feeding regimen and whatever, and I can't speak to what exactly they were doing. But from an outsider's perspective, it seemed like it was more a just for fun thing, and and they didn't mind the horse's weight. Whereas in my case, with Mac, it's been a very good thing. To start, we don't work with sugary treats, at least I hope most positive reinforcement trainers don't. Most of us work with like alfalfa pellets or really low starch, low sugar treats, and do them like just a couple at a time through a training session, and really no more than they would graze in that same amount of time. So shouldn't be putting on a ton of weight doing that. And if you are familiar at all with my Instagram or YouTube and you've seen Zoe, she has put on quite a bit of weight, but that is not for lack of trying to limit her weight. She used to be a 2 scoop a day horse. 2 scoop of horse a day. Yeah, right. Anyway, we used to have to give her 2 scoops of food a day, and now she's on less than half a scoop and is still a chubby bean. Mostly just because she has had such a vast lifestyle change. She's no longer in heavy work, and as a result is no longer the most anxious being on planet Earth. And she just kind of hangs out in her paddock, and I do what I can with her. We're working towards being able to do more ridden work and lunging work so that we can get more exercise in, but that is our goal. But the treats aren't having a direct impact on her weight. It's just the environment she's in now. We've cut her feed quite a bit, and she still has access to hay and grass and everything. So trying to keep her healthy, but she's by no means like overweight. She's just a little pudgier than I'm used to seeing her, because I'm used to seeing a horse that looks track fit. And then Mac, we've increased his feed, and because he came off the track and he had ulcers, so we're trying to do some gaining right now. And the alfalfa pellets, like I said, it's less than feeding them a flake of alfalfa within a training session. So it's not an absurd amount. So it's not going to make your horse super fat to work with treats, unless you're using a super sugary, starchy treat, which I don't recommend anyway, which is because it's not good for their tum-tums. So yeah, so that is that myth debunked, in my opinion. It does not make horses fat. It's the type of training you do, not treat training, but like what you're doing in your sessions that can have an impact on that, and also the horse's lifestyle and their daily diet. So lots of factors there. You cannot blame just the training for that, and the method does not make horses fat inherently. It is the application of the trainer and also the other aforementioned factors. So moving on to the next thing, this is sort of, I don't know, it's not really a misconception so much as it is an opinion. When I first encountered people who worked with treats, there's one very different thing about clicker trainers or treat trainers than traditional, and it is that you wear a hip pack or a fanny pack, a bum bag, whatever it is that it is called. I am aware that the word fanny is not a polite word in the UK, but that is what I have called them my entire life. So, and it just means butt to us, so I don't know. Sorry, Americans are dumb. I don't know. But anyway, so using a bum bag I thought was just ludicrous. I was like, why on earth are you walking around with this ugly, hideous piece of fabric around your waist with treats? It's just unnecessary. That's not real training. And so I thought it was all fun and games, just for trick training here and there, you're using food. But now I realize I had a good friend, I forget exactly who it was, and I'm ashamed of myself right now for that, but I had a friend make a post on Instagram about the same thing, thinking that it was so weird that people used bum bags and clickers and target sticks and all this weird stuff to teach their horses. And they were like, I don't need all that. It's unnecessary, just extra equipment. But then you look at traditional training and think about how much stuff you need. I mean, you need whips and spurs occasionally. And then outside of that, most people ride in bridles and saddles, and you have to have a girth and splint boots and lunge whips and a lunge line, a lunging cavesson, and just like so much other equipment. And it's just a difference in tools and training. For positive reinforcement, you're good with a clicker and a bum bag and a target stick, and you can do a whole lot with that. Whereas in traditional training, you might need some other tools, and it's just a difference in what you use. And it's not weird, it's just a different way of going about it. And beyond that, bum bags are 110% coming back in fashion. Like, has anybody seen Coachella pictures? Literally everyone was wearing one. Beyond that, they're so convenient. Are you kidding me? Like, I am not a purse person. I know I'm deviating here, but I am not a purse person. Don't carry one. Never have. Probably never will. But to just have like a little bum bag that you got your phone, your keys, your wallet, whatever in, and just carry that around, or rather not carry it because it's hands-free. See, it's amazing. And to be able to do that with horses and then work with food is also incredible. So I don't know. I don't think it's weird anymore, and I think that was just a matter of me being ignorant and being like, ooh, that's stupid. Why would you do that? Because it was different than what I knew, so of course it was dumb. Because if it's not what I'm doing, then it's stupid. That used to be my mentality, and that is, oh, God. I mean, not stupid, but I just didn't get it, and I didn't understand it, and I was like, ugh, why would you do that? And I'm working on being a more open-minded person. I normally get comments about people saying, oh, you're so open-minded, but then sometimes I have opinions like that, and then I'm like, Jill, and I look back on them, and I'm like, God, okay, not the definition of open-minded there. But, we all pass judgment, and we learn from them, and sometimes we are humbled, and I definitely was. Okay, so the next misconception I want to talk about is that if you use food, you will teach your horse to bite. That is the most common, most misunderstood thing in the horse world, I think. And that if you use treats with a horse, it'll bite. And I think that same line of logic could be applied to dogs. If you use food with your dog, it will bite. Have any of you ever fed a dog from your table or taught your dog to sit with a treat? It does not teach them to bite. There are other factors in the environment that can cause the dog to bite or its history, but generally speaking, using food does not teach a horse to bite. It's other stressors. Is the animal anxious? Is it worried that you're not going, or that he's not going to have any more access to the food? Or has it been withheld from him before? Or has he dealt with having to fight for food in his paddock? Like, does he have food anxiety? Or has he been hit before for like coming into someone's space, so he feels like he needs to snatch it real quick? Those are all potential factors that could teach a horse to bite when being given food. So I was always taught that if I was going to give a horse a treat, and I'm talking like back before I started positive reinforcement, this is what I was told. Like, if I was giving a horse a treat, you just give it. Doesn't matter where you're standing, your body position, doesn't matter. Just give the horse a treat. His nose can be in my space, on my space, out of my space, doesn't matter. But you just give it. And then if the horse bites at you or nips at you or reaches out to you, either push them away, or if they get too aggressive, then just pop them or hold out your elbow and let them bump into it so you didn't actually hit them. It was them who did it. All of those things, and I've seen some awful stuff on Facebook about helping horses stop biting. I've seen so many pictures, I saw a post in OTTB Connect once that was, "My horse is biting, what do I do?" And the comments were horrible. I mean, people were saying that you should bite your horse on the neck. Now, if you were not a horse person and weren't really familiar with how horse people's brains sometimes work, and you were seeing people talk about biting their horses, you would think that they were insane. Like, are you biting your dog or cat's ear for doing stuff wrong? I don't think so. At least I hope not. So I was just like, this is insane. And people would be like, deck them as hard as you can, or pinch their skin so they know what it feels like. And I don't think that that message is getting across to the horse. Certainly they're not thinking, oh, my human is biting me back in the same way that a horse in the paddock would. They would be like, out, that hurt. And if you could do it fast enough, you might discourage the exact behavior that you're trying to punish. But usually the punishment is delayed and therefore not terribly effective. The only way in my book, and the best way in my opinion, to teach a horse to stop biting is to teach the horse what you would like him to do instead. And the way to do that is with food. And I mean, at least using positive reinforcement, that's how I teach my horses not to bite and not to be muggy for food. And in doing that, it's incredibly effective, because the problem with just punching your horse in the face or pushing them off of you if they go to nip at you or actually do nip you is that the horse only learns that he gets punched, or he got punched that time when he bit at you. And in order for punishment to be effective, it has to be maintained every time. So every time your horse would bite at you, you would have to punch him in the face. And then you're not guaranteed that he won't continue or won't get more aggressive. And I talked about this in one of my podcasts prior, I think it was the What is Positive Reinforcement episode. The problem with using punishment is it induces either fear or avoidance behavior. So you don't want your horse avoiding your hand every time it comes near his face, and you also don't want him afraid of it. And fear can come out in many different ways. It can present as either avoidance, like I said, or it can be aggression. And you don't want aggression, because, I mean, if your horse is biting at you and you punch him and he defends himself in an aggressive manner, he's likely going to bite at you again or strike at you, and that puts you in a very dangerous situation. So we don't want that. I think we can all agree. I've talked to people before that are like, no, it worked for my horse and he knows better. He doesn't bite me anymore, and I taught him a lesson and punched him, blah, blah, blah. And that's great. I'm super happy for you that your horse doesn't bite anymore, but I think that there are other ways to do it, and that doesn't work for every horse. I had one, and that is how I was taught to correct that behavior, And guess what? He still bit. So I just think that it is better to, instead of just outright punishing the behavior, find the root of the behavior and then fix that. So I talked about it in my episode, I think, behavioral problems and positive reinforcement solutions, about max biting problems. So you can go back and listen to that, so I'm not being completely redundant here. But I was like, okay, what are the reasons that he could be biting? And so I went back and reviewed them, and I listed all of those reasons earlier. And also, he was ulceric. He had ulcers in his stomach, and it was making him uncomfortable. And being nippy is a key indicator of the horse potentially having ulcers. So we treated him for that, and the behavior dissipated a lot. But I also went through training to teach him how I would like him to behave around me, how I would like him to behave around my hands, and also tell him that hands are a good thing and that he is allowed to come into contact with them, but this is how I'd like him to do it. And in short, it was to hold up my hand and have him place his mouth in my hand with his jaw completely still, not moving at all. And also he takes treats from my hand, and this is a horse that bit at me frequently and bit my hand once. And now he doesn't bite at all, and he never bites when he's taking treats either. So it does not teach horses to bite. In fact, it taught a horse how to not bite. So complete misconception in my opinion. And as I was saying, to circle back here, using positive reinforcement, you can teach a behavior that is incompatible with the one you don't like. So, for instance, the one we don't like is obviously biting. So, in order to teach an incompatible behavior, you have to pick something that the horse cannot do at the same time as bite you. The most obvious behavior is to stand with his head in the center of his chest, not in your space. He can't bite you and be out of your space at the same time in that position. So, you reward for that position, and we do this over protected contact so that you don't run the risk of getting bitten. And when you teach that in protected contact, then the horse learns how to behave around food and how to take food and how to not bite. And I obviously took it a step further with Mac because it was continuing to be a problem. But for most horses, like Zoe, who was very food motivated and was definitely a mugger, it was really easy for her to just redirect that behavior, because after they learn that there is no point in being all over you for food, that food doesn't come when they are in that position, they stop being in that position. So they stop coming into your space, they stop biting at you. So they will stand politely beside you and wait, and then you give them one. And you reinforce the good behaviors. And a lot of people say that, this is also another misconception that I'll lightly touch on here, that positive reinforcement trainers don't address bad behavior. And usually people, by address, they mean punish it. And a lot of times it either indirectly gets punished with negative punishment, but we try to not do that intentionally and try to keep that as out as possible. I mean, I don't like to work with punishment in any form, negative or positive. So yeah, that is that. But as far as not addressing the undesirable behaviors, that's completely untrue. I mean, the whole point of reinforcing behaviors that we want is to make them more likely to happen. And on the flip side, that makes behaviors we don't like less likely to happen. Take the example of biting again. If the horse is biting and is not getting reinforced, is not getting food from it, not getting anything out of it, and then on the other hand, when he's standing politely with his head in the center of his chest, facing forward, out of my space, he's getting treats every time. Why would he bite at me? Why would he do the opposite behavior? If placing his mouth in my hand with his jaw still earns him food, why would he bite at my hand to communicate to me? So it's about teaching the horse how we would like them to communicate with us and how we would like them to behave around us. A lot of people forget to take into account that horses are natural foragers and they look for food. So they can get nippy if you withhold it from them because they're searching for it. And it's not the horse being rude or disrespectful. It's just what the horse knows, and it's not been taught anything else. And punching it in the face or biting it on the neck or pinching its ear doesn't tell it what you want it to do instead. It just says that's wrong, and sometimes that doesn't work. because the horse is like, okay, that's wrong, but I still want that, and I don't know what else to do. So, it's just food for thought on that one. I just definitely think it can be done better, and for more on that, you can listen to the episode where I go in more depth about how I taught Mac about not biting. The last and final misconception that I want to talk about for this week's episode, I'm sure I will come up with more for later episodes, but for now, this is the last one I want to touch on, that the horse is just doing it for food, and if you give the horse a choice, he doesn't want to work. That has been a huge thing that I've noticed, a huge trend, I should say, or common opinion among people who are maybe opposed to positive reinforcement or are concerned about what might happen if they try it. So, obviously there are people that say you're just doing it for the food, you're luring the horse, and that's just, it's not the truth. The horses are not just doing it for the food, and the reason that is the case is because the food that I work with and that many other positive reinforcement trainers work with is of no more higher value than the ground, the grass that they are literally walking on and choosing not to eat instead of working with us. And it's no more valuable than the piles of hay in their stalls, They would rather work with us. And, sometimes that's not always the case, and sometimes they're not up for working. But for the majority of the time, I would say 99% of the time I walk out in Zoe's paddock, she is cantering up to me and is like, hello, what are we doing? And it's amazing. And it's not just for food, because like I said, she has the complete freedom to leave, and she can go graze, or she could go hang out with her buddies, or she could go eat her hay, and she chooses not to. There's a fascinating little concept called contra freeloading. I will let everyone do their own reading on that because I'm not a scientist, and we'll probably do a very terrible job explaining it, but I'll give it a go. Contra freeloading is essentially preferring to work a little bit for the reward, the reinforcer, or whatever it is that they're after. So in the case of working with horses, contra freeloading would be working with us to work for the food instead of grazing. So they're working to get the reinforcer. So it's not all about just eating, because like I said a million times, they can go do that. They have the complete freedom to do so. But they choose to instead work for it because it's fun. They enjoy it. It's enriching to them. It's kind of like solving a puzzle or doing a Sudoku for us. Does anybody actually do Sudoku? Or crossword, I should say. People probably do more crosswords than play Sudoku. I don't know. Let me know if you're a Sudoku person. I don't know anybody that is. But anyway, like just using your brain and like being a little bit more engaged and challenging yourself. And the horses enjoy it too. And so it can't just be for food. Otherwise, they would just stand around and not do anything at all. And that brings me to the second misconception within this last and fourth misconception, which is that when given a choice, the horses would prefer to not work or not train or not play, whatever word you would like to use. And like I said, untrue, and largely due to contra freeloading and enrichment and interacting with humans and getting that attention and the reinforcer and playing the game. It's a lot of fun for horses. And at first sometimes it goes a little sticky and you have to start slow with them, especially horses that come from a traditional background who don't know this way of training at all. You have to often be really patient with them because they have no idea that they have choice. And I listened to the In the Spirit of Horse podcast when I first started and listened to Mosey Truitt talk on this. And she said something that really stuck with me, that if you don't respect a no, how are you ever going to get a genuine yes out of your horse? So if every time the horse tells you no, you force them to do it anyway, how are you sure that the horse is ever actually agreeing to participate with you? Because he could be doing it out of fear or out of avoidance or out of wanting to just not encounter any of the potential consequences that come with usually saying no. So at first they might test it a little bit and they might be like, oh, I can actually say no, okay, cool, I don't want to do that. And then they won't. But once they realize that what you're doing allows them to have that freedom and choice, and that they're also getting a really cool reward out of it, again, enrichment, contra freeloading, food, all of the wonderful things, then they really enjoy the game and they pick up on it and they're like, oh, I get it now. This is fun. And they are super game to play. And if you have a horse that is really enthusiastic about your traditional training already, then they will definitely love doing positive reinforcement, because they'll just be like, oh, another great thing to do with my human. And for me, with Zoe, when I first started with her, she had the reaction of being like, oh my God, this is awesome. You're not doing what you used to me. I am all about this. But some of the other horses I work with are a little bit slower to take to it. And it takes them a while to warm up to the training, because they're like, I don't like what people have done to me before. I don't really want to interact with you. So I respect that. And then gradually I take what I can get and work with them in smaller approximations, and they come around, and then they get really excited about training. And it's just a really cool progression to watch with, especially those horses that are more closed off or in a state of learned helplessness perhaps, or are just not really sure what to think about humans, or maybe don't particularly like humans. So it's really fun to watch that, and it can be unnerving, especially when we're so used to controlling horses with force and ropes and everything. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, that's how we've always done it. That's how I always did it. And, I always dreamt of going out in the paddock with my horse and running around and doing liberty circles and stuff like that. And I thought that was just, it required a magical bond between horse and rider, and that they just connected, and I wasn't connecting with my horse enough. But really, it's just having a better understanding of training and operant conditioning, and the principles that make animals want to learn and participate, and same for humans. So making it something that's really fun and that the horses actually really want to do, it makes them want to say yes, and it makes them want to participate, because it's now a fun game for them. So yeah, I think that about wraps up my misconception conversation. I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about that, because it was on my mind after filming my interview, and I had to keep it under 15 minutes, and I have just talked for almost 30 about this particular topic. So I was like, I need space to elaborate, so now it's on the podcast. But definitely keep an eye out for the Restart program, because I think that is going to be such a cool project to be a part of, and I am beyond proud and honored to be able to participate in something like that. And I hope that you all check it out when it comes out. Like I said, I will keep you all updated on all platforms as to when that will be available. And I think that about covers our little episode this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure, if you were interested in checking me out on other platforms, catching up with us, seeing what we're up to, you can check me out at JETEquiTheory on all other platforms: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the good ones. And I think that's about it. If you need any help getting started with positive reinforcement, I have a resources page, a blog, and lots of get started help on my website, which is also JETEquiTheory.com. So JETEquiTheory.com. So thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to leave a positive review if you enjoyed this week's episode, and I will catch you guys next Tuesday. Bye!